One of my good friends here is a really high-end broker and a lot in Austin. I still know him, and those guys will be on 50-50 splits.
Dang.
Right? But they'll also broker it with 3 other guys. So it's like, we're splitting the 50-50, 50-50. And it takes, it's a 40 grand commission, and it takes 2 years, and then you make 7,000. You're like, dude, I could have sold the house in 30 days.
That's wild. I think sometimes people are realtors in this sense are so, especially in the beginning, are hungry to get deals. There's a lot of misinformation they'll put out there just to get a lead or just to get something, to where down the line, when it comes back to like a professional, it's like, no, where did you learn that from? Where did you hear that? That's not the way it works at all.
Hi, my name is Giavanna Maddalone. I'm a realtor of Teifke Real Estate. I've been licensed for just in about 3 years so far, and my biggest year is actually this year. So far, I've closed 2.7 million, and I still have more in escrow. So yeah, that's good.
Hey, my name is Devante Boll. I'm a local real estate agent here in Corpus Christi with KM Premier Real Estate. I have been in real estate since April of 2021. Last year, I sold 9.2 million, and hopefully this year I do more.
My name is Gino Montalvo, and I am with Miramont. I'm like, where am I looking? I'm with Miramont Montalvo Associates. It's a family brokerage here in town. I've been licensed as a residential realtor for the last 10 years. On average, the last 4 years, we sell over 200 properties. Last year, we sold 65 million.
Come on.
That's good.
My name is Matthew Teifke. I am with Teifke Real Estate. I started in 2012. And my biggest personal year was 2022, and I did 23 million personally.
The amount of work that I do on average to close a deal really just depends on the deal. Residential is usually a quicker process than commercial. Example, the last commercial deal I closed took 9 months start to finish, from whenever we started negotiating all the way to the closing table where we all got paid.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's 9 months from contract acceptance to...
Yeah, it took us like 5 months to get under contract.
Got you. Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Got
and
you.
then
Okay.
4 months to close it.
Got you.
Yeah.
Yeah, residential, I haven't dove into commercial yet, but residential, it definitely depends. New construction's fairly easy, fairly quick, because they got their whole systems in place. But residential, depending on the transaction, can be 35 days to 60 days,
Yeah, or go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, as you guys know, there's a lot that goes into making a deal. Like the timeline to close is one, but how did you get the client? What were you doing before that? Sure. So it's an interesting business that we're in. And personally, the best deals that I do, they take the most time. That's what I realized. And that's more on investing and acquiring deals is, we might be working this for 6 months or 8 months, but if we're doing it for 1 month, it's probably not that great. I went too fast. But it's a hard question. It's a good question, but it's because what all goes into getting that client and getting that deal done. It's
all the
hard
background work, the planting the seeds, the referrals, the business you've done over the years to bring that business to you. To continue on the question, how much work do you put in or how much work do I actually do? It just depends on the person, the deal, the client, the situation. There's certain deals where it takes days, and there's certain deals where it takes months, like they mentioned. Yeah. If you're doing it right and you have people to help you, it might be very little. And in some people's minds, we don't do a lot. And in some others, we do everything. So it just depends on who you're working with.
Right. Yeah, and that's the balance, because a lot of them fall apart, right? I don't know what percentage, but maybe half.
Right. Yeah.
And it's hard because you're not clocking in. You're not waking up and going, all right, I answered this call, so that's 15 minutes, or I did this, or I did that. So you kind of just know in your heart, I put a lot into that. It drained me. I don't want to go through that again. I'm glad we're closing.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's see, buyer's agent, seller's agent, clients on the seller side, the buyer's side, inspectors, appraisers, underwriters, title company, all the people that work at the title company, the lender, all the people that work at the lender, and all the in-between people. And then you got your sometimes subcontractors that do repairs. You got people's dads involved, moms involved, kids involved, that friend at work that knows a lot about real estate involved. Who else?
I think you hit them all.
Right.
I was going to say
that's on a regular. Yeah, that's on a regular deal. Yeah, the referral that sent it to you in the other state that's checking on their check.
15 to 20, and then as you guys know, and this is one of my challenges at when I'm trying to invest, because I'm a middleman, we're middlemen, but then when you're the investor, you're trying to get the deal done, and really there's two people essentially, like buyer and seller, like who's really doing the deal,
Right.
and then there's all these other people kind of fostering it along and touching it at different points. But it's a tricky balance, because when you're trying to invest and buy, it's like, I just want to talk to the owner, and I still want you to get your commission, Gino, but I need to have a direct conversation.
Just to make
but there's a reason there's a middleman there, right? They want that there, so it's just there's, I'd say 15 to 20 touch a contract.
That's true.
And I think that's why it's that many people being involved on one particular deal. I think that's why relationships are so important, because you never know when somebody from another deal that maybe that didn't go well is going to come back in another transaction. It's like, oh yeah, the last one was pretty bad. I promise it won't be like that again. We're going to do things a little different this time, or oh, I forgot this. So a lot of people involved that you have to make sure you keep those relationships up.
The most important non-important person on the deal is the dad. The buyer's dad. He will make or break the deal. No, I'm kidding.
Well, yeah, he bought a house in '97. He knows what's up.
No kidding.
He knows.
So most of my clients come from either referrals, social media, or just that's it, really. I don't do any other advertising besides social media. I don't have any billboards, no bus benches, no calendars, no typical resources that a lot of realtors over the last couple of decades have used, mostly because social media is so prominent and it's easier and it's free. It's the trick is getting good at it and not being one of those ones that just tries one time or one thing and gives up. And it's like, well, social media didn't work for me. So for me, that's where I get most of mine.
Yeah, I'd say the same. When my first client came from an open house, and it was just one of those miracle open houses. They came in, wanted to put a contract in.
Nice.
And after that, it never happened again. And it's just been referrals and social media. And ever since.
I think same. Mine has mostly been referrals or just Spear working. Maybe they were on a customer on a company that needed work buying a property, and so they'd refer them to me. So
right, got you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Good.
No, it's just people, right? Like there's no lead machine, just printing out leads, and so get them from barber, from somebody at the store, like just everywhere. And what I've personally found is we're kind of going the direction of trying to be able to raise capital and get larger deals done. And all these people that are going to invest, I've talked to them like 5 years ago, 4 years ago. They've been watching what we're doing and respecting what we're doing, and now they're ready. And so I guess the biggest thing I'd say there is it's just the follow up and being around and not just. It's easy to, it's two things. Talk to as many people as you can, but you got to follow up. And the unfortunate thing is, and it goes both ways, is like if you meet me one time and you propose what you do, I'm really not going to remember who you are, unfortunately. And vice versa. They're not going to remember me. So you just have to continuously be around.
Yeah, I would say the hardest thing to hear as an active realtor is, hey, are you still selling real estate? It's like, dog, you're not seeing my post. You're not seeing my...
That would
I got to work a little harder. Okay, so yeah, it's hard to see. So like Matt said, you got the follow up, letting people know what you're doing. Even if they don't actively need you, just letting them know, like, hey, I'm here if you have anybody else.
That's the one thing I love about real estate is there's no one way, right?
Oh, it's whatever works for you. It's kind of like what's the best CRM? What's the best method? It's like whatever works for you, because there's certain people, like you said, with open houses. I hate open houses. I don't think they do anything other than just give somebody something to do. But if you do them right and you make content out of it and you promote it right, not only are you doing your job, but you're also looking for other sellers or other clients to go, that guy's active. They're doing stuff. They're not just sitting around.
Right.
I think the biggest mistake homeowners make is honestly being too emotional about the whole process, just because most people don't normally buy more than one house in a certain period of time. Well, we're used to doing it on a daily basis, but I feel like there's so many crises that homeowners have created that isn't really a crisis if you just stick with the process and follow up with whoever else is like on it and work to get the deal done, instead of being like, oh wait, there's the inspection found XYZ. Okay, I'm going to back out, instead of being like, oh, wait, seller will fix this and this. You can get a credit in this area and make the deal work.
Yeah. I'd say on the selling side specifically, not understanding like the signs of the times. So like if it's obviously 2020 lower interest rates, 2021, you can go with a different strategy and more aggressive on your pricing. But when it's not that anymore, you got to look at what homes have actually sold for around you. You still get some sellers that they remember what their neighbor's house sold for, and it's just like, man,
2 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like the interest rate now does not support that price you want, and that's really like a hard thing for me, because I'm like, I send you these factual comps of homes that actually sold near you for a certain price within this amount of time, and they're just like, nah, I want what I want, But hey, we still work with them, and sometimes you just gotta. They don't know, our perspective of actually paying attention to the data. So that's why they're leaning on us to give them the factual information.
So I'm going to answer it from, like I said, someone that's a homeowner that's looking to sell and buy. I think some people, when they go through the process of buying a home, it's either due to them personally or the person they work with that bought that home, that once they get to that finish line, they buy the home, it's kind of like, all right, cool. And they get into the home, and then for the next couple of years, they don't keep up with that financial literacy they gained when they were buying the home. They forget about credit. They start buying everything. They charge everything. Hey, we need furniture, right? Let's just charge it all. Rooms to go's got no interest or whatever the place. And here they are 3 years later, and they got like $30,000 in debt, $40,000 in debt, or whatever it is. And there's all these different things they've done in the time as a homeowner that have put them in a position to where that money they're making, grown in equity, is gone because they bought solar panels, or they did other things. That's a whole other thing. They've done things during the process that have killed their equity, and deferred maintenance, just different things as a homeowner that just weren't taught to them, or because there was no follow-up on the realtor's part, like, hey, this is the home value now. If you have any questions about how the market is, let me know. Even if they know they don't want to sell, just keeping that active connection with someone, like Gia said, that does this every single day, and not, all right, it's been 4 years, now I'm ready, and just everything went out the door they learned about real estate.
Right. That's good.
Yeah, I think all that makes me think of, to your point of like knowing the times, and it's almost like homeowners are reactive to, when the market was really hot, at least in Austin, and I'm sure here too, is like nobody wanted to sell because they thought it was going to keep going up. And they're just like, oh, it's going to keep going up. And they're basing, it's an investment, but it's also a personal, and it's not an investment aspect of it. And so they didn't sell because they thought they could get more. Now the market's bad. Now they want to sell because they need to retire in 3 or 4 years. It's not going to come back. And so it was more, they weren't really thinking about the times and the numbers and everything they learned, and they were more reactive versus like, hey, if it's going up and it's a good price, like, and it makes sense, sell it.
It'll always be that way, yeah.
Right. And then it's going to quickly change. And so they're making these decisions too much on the fly, in my opinion. And they're not exploring what are the creative options, what other solutions exist other than just selling it right now because you feel like you have to.
Right.
Good point. I would say our realtors workaholics. The good ones are.
Yeah.
I know a lot of bad ones that pretend to be good ones and they don't do anything. So to be in this business, to wake up every single day and go, right, got to get to work with no one telling you exactly what to do, having whatever guidebook you follow, you have to become workaholic, because if not, there's no one dropping checks off at your door. Like you got to go find them. You got to find the deals, and if you don't, then there's no one else to blame except yourself.
I heard this quote from the founder of Remax. Pretty simple, but it resonated with me, and it said, "Real estate is the worst paying easy job and the best paying hard job." And to your point, right?
Yep.
If you just treat it like it's easy, it's the worst paying job there is.
Oh, it's interesting when you talk to people that become realtors that have said, hey, I want to be a realtor, it looks fun. And I remember people, real estate, like anything else, is a job.
Yeah.
I'm fun and I make it look fun, but it's not. And everybody at this table can attest, it's stressful, but you have to find that fun in it to make it where, hey, I'm going to go do this. It's all good.
Yeah, picking up where these guys left off, to a certain extent, you definitely have to put in work. And I'm not just like a lackadaisical 1 foot in, 1 foot out type of work. It's got to be showing up every day. For me, I came from the military, so I just took that schedule and said, from this time to this time, I'm going to work. And when you have your own schedule and can make your own schedule, that's hard to do, because you think you have a freedom not to work, right? And it's like, no, when you're running your own business and you have this flexibility, you actually have to be more disciplined with showing up to work. And but I will say this: you can burn yourself out So you gotta be able to rest too. You gotta be able to balance working hard and resting well. Cause I mean,
I agree.
You know, you can crash and then it's not worth it at all.
Yeah, then you gain like 100 pounds and you go way overweight, get stressed out, start getting a lot of gray in your beard. And then you finally hit a turning point at 40 where you decide to run a marathon. And
Hey, that was good.
Come on.
Killed it.
Sorry, self-promotion.
I knew you was talking about something.
It sounds really.
Why am I so unhappy when I wake up?
I do think to kind of, I guess, tag on to this conversation is I know when I noticed that I was slipping into being a workaholic for real estate, and I still understood, okay, well, if I put like, you know, pressing the brakes, like I may not have work, but then I also realized that I need to set boundaries, and that's something I've noticed that some realtors don't set boundaries, which is part of hustle culture. I get it. So I'll have realtors send me contracts at midnight, and I'm like, but title isn't even open. Sellers aren't going to respond to your contract or offer at midnight. So why don't it'd be easier for all of us as a whole if we did say, hey, at 9 o'clock, we might.
But be honest, how many times have y'all got a contract late at night and you're chilling, you're watching TV, you're like, hell yeah.
No.
You can send me a contract at any. Sorry, can I go? Sorry. I didn't mean to. You can send me a contract anytime. I'll be happy. I'm not going to be mad.
No, I totally agree. I'm still happy about it. But
watching the show.
At some point, there still has to be a time where you have, like he's saying, we have to, by resting, we have to set a boundary of, okay, after a certain time, I don't look at my phone or the computer. If you want to start working at 6 a.m., go for it.
I just started putting my phone on just do not disturb, you know, after a certain time. I mean, especially, you know, me and my family, we're growing our family, right? We just had a baby. And so when I'm out at work, I want to be present there. When I'm home, I want to be present there. And I know if I hear my phone, if it goes off, I mean, I'm going to look at it. Like, I don't have that much discipline that if I hear it, I'm just like, oh, I'll get it later. So I'll put it on do not disturb. And any call or text that I'm getting, like you said, past 8, it most likely can wait. Yeah. Most likely can wait. My clients, I love you, but it most likely
the one thing I'll say, and I agree, and I've learned that too, but I think the challenge is when you're getting started. Yeah, it's hard to do that.
When
you have a little bit of success and you have things working, you do know that it's going to be good.
Yeah.
But when you're new, you don't, or I didn't, right?
Yeah, that phone call cost me thousands of dollars. That voicemail I missed, they call the next person down the line.
So I don't know the answer. I mean, because it feels like when you're starting, you kind of get after it, but you know, we know now it's like you got to have the balance for sure.
Yeah, and for anybody you see, this is for like just because y'all are younger. Right. For anybody you see that does certain things, like do certain numbers, they didn't start out doing those numbers. Right, they put in all that work. Like Matt's been doing this for a very long time, and he's done a lot of different things in the field. And people might see him and go, "Oh, look at all these things he does." He's just lucky he has all that clientele, or he has all these things going. It's like, no, you didn't see the 10, 20 years of education and all the different things to build to that point that, you do have to have those sleepless nights and those days where that's all you focus on. And then you finally kind of get to sit back a little bit.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I guess that's the answer. Point. I mean, you kind of need it at the beginning.
Yeah. Gotta grind.
Yeah. I'm a big believer in being an entrepreneur. And so I feel like just depending on, you know, your goals, but I believe in being a real estate entrepreneur, being somebody who can bring value to different people on different things. And, you know, maybe even if you're only doing residential, maybe you're not the best agent for that neighborhood or that house, and recognizing that, and you can find another agent and co-broker it. But there's a lot of ways to be open-minded. As far as investing, personally, I've invested in single family for a long time, and I don't like it.
I love that honest opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sitting on houses, and they were really great for a long time. I mean, in Austin, they're going up $5,000 per month, right? But now taxes have gone up, way up, and it's hard to keep them.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it allowed me to get to this point where I have a balance sheet where I can go to a lender and buy a commercial deal. So I think it was good, but at this point, like, I don't want to buy any houses, even if it's like, you could go make pretty good money. I'd rather not. And then as far as transactions, personally, I like doing residential on the brokerage side better. I know a lot of people say commercial is easier, but it's just such a different game. And there's a lot of different resources that you need to have in place on the commercial side to really do it right. But my ultimate thing is just be an entrepreneur and provide value for people. Don't put yourself in, this is all you do. Yeah. But I'm not saying that, you know, that's right for everybody. Some people say this is all I do. This is what I specialize in, and I respect it. And there's something really great about that.
Yeah, I haven't done anything in commercial yet. It's definitely something that I look at and I'm like, because you see the big numbers, right? And you see that, oh, you can close 2-3 deals in a year and be, you know what I'm saying? But that's just from the outside looking in. I know that there's, like you just said, it took you 9 months to close that, you know, one deal. And so yeah, I see commercial. I'm like, maybe one day I'll tap into it. But I think on what you were saying, like if I now knowing what I know now about real estate, if I could be like a commercial investor and own like some shopping centers and all that versus, you know, some residential single family homes, I'd much rather take the commercial side because you're dealing with businesses who don't want to fail. On the residential side, you don't know what you're going to get as tenants. Right. You know, when you're in there, you'd be dealing with some nightmare situations. And there really is limited upside on houses. Mm-hmm. Like you just get the appreciation, but on commercial, you can add so much value to it. Yeah.
I think that I like residential when I help homeowners or people I know and I've developed a relationship with, and it's so rewarding getting them into houses. And it's like, oh my goodness, like you just had a baby, and and you're in a house instead of a rental, and you have like, and there's no mold in it, or like, but then for commercial, I think I prefer commercial just on the sense of, I think it's so fun to look at a property and be like, okay, this is vacant land, but we're going to turn this and put it into a shopping center or a restaurant or something. And I can actually be involved with like the direction of a city. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like you can change the whole landscape of a community with some commercial deals. But yeah, the fulfillment and helping people, especially purchase homes, especially their first home. Yeah, I love that for sure. I love seeing the joy on people's faces in that.
So between the two, I would prefer residential, mostly because I rely on others for the commercial stuff. And like Gia mentioned, like with residential, it's easier for me to find and get referrals for residential compared to commercial. Was like Matt said, it's a whole different game. It's a whole different way of doing things, a whole different brokerage that you have to deal with. It's not as easy as, hey, Devante, I have this buyer, we go back and forth with relationships. You have other realtors. And so it's easier to find the deals, I think, in residential than it is in commercial because it's a very different game. So for me, I prefer residential.
One thing I want to say, which bothers me, is because I've worked at a high-end commercial brokerage for 3 years. And the reason, it's like a personal thing of like being able to do both is because I feel like a lot of commercial brokers are like, oh, we're too good. And, they talk a lot of smack about realtors, right? And I've seen it and I've been part of it. I wasn't talking smack because I was doing both at the same time. But these commercial brokers say all this stuff. And then this happened personally. They're going to sell their house and they're selling it on their own. And then they're asking me how to write the contract. Like, so hypocritical here, right? And so that's like a frustration is how these brokerages say you can or you can't do this. And it's all real estate and it is, it's a different world. But like if you're focusing what you do in commercial, you'd quickly learn it, but you have a good niche, right? But I just hate how like people try to keep people out of a certain aspect.
That's a good point.
I heard commercial real estate is really about who you know.
Yeah. But the brokerages, right? Like, one of my good friends here is a really high-end broker and a lot in Austin. I still know him, and those guys will be on 50-50 splits.
Dang.
Right? But they'll also broker it with 3 other guys. So it's like, we're splitting the 50-50, 50-50. And it takes, it's a $40,000 commission and it takes 2 years and then you make $7,000. You're like, dude, I could have sold the house in 30 days.
That's wild.
But obviously the numbers can get really big quickly.
Right.
I love wholesaling. This is my this is my belief in y'all tell me your honest opinion.
Okay.
Because I've never had this discussion. I've said it, but I feel as if the reason that wholesaling exists is because realtors have been lazy.
I agree.
And I think that realtors have found their deals by, typing in your login and your password and you click a couple links and you send the link and that's how you help somebody buy a house. But shouldn't I be knocking on doors, sending mailers, cold calling, right? If I really want to help you buy a house, especially if you want to invest in a property. And so personally, I think that this whole niche, I mean, anytime there's something in the market, there's probably a value that's there. And it exists because realtors were lazy. That's what I believe. And I respect it. And I think that you can put on different hats at different times. And some people hate realtors or they hate wholesalers. And I think that they probably don't really know that much about it. And you can provide a tremendous amount of value by doing both. And so that's back to being an entrepreneur. Wholesale it, flip it, be a commercial agent, whatever you want. But, you know, I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts or anything in general.
I've never actually met, I don't know if I don't think it's big in Corpus at all. Like I haven't met, it is really? Yeah. I haven't met or interacted or had to deal with the wholesalers. So I only know how it works out in theory. Like I did some research before I even got into real estate. So I can't really have much of an opinion on how I feel about them because I've never had to be on a deal with them. But yeah, y'all speak to that. Y'all have dealt with them.
Well, I've opened doors for wholesalers and I guess done due diligence for them. And I don't mind it. I think, as Matt says, I think it does serve a value. I think the problem is when ethics come into play. And so, like, I know that I've personally opened doors for other realtors who are working directly with the wholesaler, and then they come and start talking about my reputation because I opened the door for the wholesale for them on a wholesale deal. And so, because of the morally gray, I personally don't want to work with wholesalers just because if it's going to affect my integrity and my reputation, then I don't want to be a part of it in that sense. But as Matt says, if everyone's disclosed and the seller understands what they're doing, what they're signing to the wholesaler, then I don't see there should be a problem with wholesaling. One
other quick thing is just like anything, it's like, there's realtors that operate a certain way and wholesalers, and it's like, are you integrity driven? I personally think that wholesalers should have to get licensed. I think that would be great. But it also is frustrating to me that, Gino can buy this house and have $200K in his bank account, and the next day he can sell it for $300K, and we all celebrate that. Good job, Gino. But that's because he's got the money, right? But if someone is a wholesaler and they find the value and they flip it, that's bad business. Why? Because Gino has money and the other person doesn't. Right.
And so to touch on what he's talking about like that, so essentially you understand what a wholesale deal is, right? Or what a wholesaler does.
They get it under contract, right? And
so they're selling the deal essentially. Right. So to answer the question directly, what I think about wholesalers, the same thing about realtors. I hate realtors when they're bad realtors. When they're good realtors, I love them. With wholesalers, when they're bad wholesalers and they're not doing their due diligence and they're not learning enough about the process to create value and they're just muddying things up, that's when it gets like, oh, what are you doing here? So like kind of what Matt said, I think there's a little bit more involved that maybe a wholesaler should have to go through in order to do what they're doing, to write on contracts and to use contracts. I think they have to have a little more than a TikTok video they watched to learn how to do these things, just because, hey, you are being involved in a very large transaction, and if you're not being directly honest with people in the wholesale process, which can be very great because there's a lot of wholesalers locally that I've met that will tell people, hey, I'm going to buy your house, and then 60 days later, hey, Gino, I got your name from a person that said you buy houses, blah, blah, here's what's going on. They're under contract with somebody in Arizona, and there's no earnest money at the title company, there's no nothing, and they're just sitting there essentially about to get a lien on their property that they don't even know they can put a lien on my property. Like, yeah, if you don't sell it to them, and all these different things can happen. So with good wholesalers, we work with a lot of great wholesalers. Me and my cousin buy houses cash, and we will talk to these wholesalers that bring us deals, and they're good at what they do, and everyone's happy. And so like when Matt said, there is some people to where you can look down on wholesalers and go, oh, look at this guy, he made this much for making this deal. But yeah, he did the work. He did what he was supposed to do. He found the seller and he found the buyer and he put it together. He's getting paid because he made the deal happen. Otherwise, it just would have been a vacant house sitting on the corner. I mean, it doesn't have to be that way, but in most cases, that's the way it works out. So I like wholesalers. I mean, I wouldn't consider myself a wholesaler. There's times that we have deals that essentially we do wholesale, but I don't consider myself a wholesaler. I don't brand myself as a wholesaler because I am also a licensed realtor and we help a lot of people residential. But yeah, it can get very, like she said, it's gray where if I meet someone and they want to sell their house, my realtor cap is saying, hey, this is what the comps look like. Right. My investor hat is saying, hey, I can buy this for 50 and I can go sell it to whoever for this much. So that's a hard thing for me as a realtor, wearing both hats and knowing. But it also comes into the client. You have some clients who are like, I don't care. I just need this money today. I don't want to wait any longer. I don't want to shop it around. Can you give me this much? And if everybody's happy with that number, then okay.
I think at the end of the day, like we were talking about earlier, sometimes you're probably overpaid and sometimes you're underpaid. And so ultimately it kind of equals out, right? Like sometimes it is really easy money, but most of the time it's not, right? Like that happens rarely. So, you know, back to the free market, everything's negotiable. Rates can come down. You can negotiate that. The market says what it says. People are all happy with it. There's lawsuits going on with these things, right, at a high level. But ultimately, there's 4 people here, and everybody can negotiate. And so I think they're paid just how they're supposed to be based on just the free market.
Sure.
I think also into that, too, is that when you hire a realtor, you're hiring them for however long for you to takes you to sell the property or buy the property. So technically, as you're saying, if we all work 24/7 or 8 to 9 or however long, you're technically hiring us to get our time for however many days that is. And so I think in that case, you're not technically being overpaid or underpaid. Just depends on how long, if you get that commission and divide it by how many days you were employed by them to fiduciarily represent them, then that also I think comes to effect.
And how good is the agent, right?
Yeah.
Some probably are for sure.
Right. And then take into consideration that commission, how it breaks down after splits, insurance, what you put into it, other responsibilities, taxes, big ones, taxes, into where, spread out over so many months, like how much did I actually make on this deal? Was it worth it? Recently, we've gone into a lot of building, and there's times where we're building, like right now we have about 60 lots left in Cal Allen, and we're building, and on some of these properties, we're not making a big amount, but it's spread over like 9 months. Right. And it's like, so we only made like, and so it just depends. I don't think I think some realtors are overpaid when they're not doing their job. Right. But when you're doing your job, no.
Yeah. I was about to say, I've never felt overpaid. I've felt underpaid, but
never like, not even like on one commission, you're like, dude, that, I feel like, I know it equals out, right? But
right.
Like that was pretty easy money right there.
Not yet. I mean, not in the sense that every deal has been really hard. It's just, I feel like, you know, being honest, I've taken every deal really serious because I know that if I mess up, I'm potentially messing with somebody's life, you know? But there have been deals where it's like, I gave a lot of myself, whether it be time or even sometimes money, you know what I'm saying, to make it happen. Right. And you get to the end of it and you're like, that
got to be done.
I won't do that again, you know? What is HG? No, I'm kidding. I don't watch HG. I'll let y'all take that.
So, no. The same with Netflix. I think people have an idea of what real estate looks like because they've seen Selling Sunset, or they've seen House Hunters, or they've seen Flip or Flop, or whatever these different shows that show our world in a light of, hey. So I will also say this from someone that's done TV stuff, Master done TV stuff too, and you know how it works. What you see on TV isn't real life. It is, hey, let's do it this way now. Hey, do it this way. Hey, come back in and say this. Hey, we can't say that. That's not for real. Let's do it this way. Hey, you're going to see 3 houses, and today you're going to go walk on the beach, and you got to decide to pick one. Is that how most transactions go? No, it's not.
No, definitely not.
And so for people, I think it's our responsibility as realtors to show them the reality of things the same way with, hey, like, you know, there's no real thing as Iron Man. Like, it's not real. It's just the representation of our world to look nice and get viewers.
Right. Yeah.
I think a lot of it's like, you know, real, like, some, you know, parts of it, right? But they just, the hard stuff is the numbers, or when you're late on your payment, or the mortgage is calling you, or your lender can't close the deal. That's, real estate's tough, right? Yeah. And
I think the most real parts in real estate are happening not during the showings, you know, not at the closing table, right? It's that time in between. It's the writing the contracts, the conversations back and forth. Yeah, like you said, behind the scenes.
That's the weird thing of, I've had people like, I want to shadow you. I'm like, honestly, like, you're welcome to come hang around me, but it's a weird way to shadow.
That's the hard one, right?
I don't know how
like,
that is shadow.
Just hover over the computer.
Just sit around.
Yeah, there's gonna be days you're not gonna see me do anything.
Right?
Does this guy work?
Just sit in the corner and watch
Love is Blind all day.
Get in my shadow over here.
I do think one thing though of HGTV that may be accurate would be whenever you have the contractors and they got a quote for the repair and they expect to be this much, and now it's way higher, and that affects the whole lending process anyway, and home buying process.
What makes a realtor a bad realtor? I'll touch on one, but I know there's many, right? I think, like we were saying it earlier, integrity can really make or break, a transaction. Because I'll even be honest, there have been times where, you can be tempted to not give like the blunt fact of a situation. Like maybe you want to say it in a way that lessens the blow to your buyer or seller. And I feel like that can be a recipe for disaster. I find that, when you walk in integrity, integrity protects you. And then no one can look back and say you weren't 100% honest or transparent about a certain situation. So I think that can make or break a realtor's, because your reputation is going to precede you too. Because if you do that enough times, something's going to fall out, something's going to happen, and now you have a reputation of being dishonest or not handling, business well.
I think on that point, it's getting their emotions involved, right? Like, I mean, if you send someone a low offer, like they don't need to get mad about it, right? Or whatever it is, it's really not any emotions that should be involved. Your clients will have them, and that's normal, right? But realtors will say things and operate a certain way, and like you said, your reputation precedes you. It's like, all right, that's the way you want to act. I mean, we could be doing deals for 20 more years, but this is how you want to approach things. Maybe they're having a bad day, but I don't really think, I mean, you should have sales ability and communicate well, but you don't have to have any emotions as a realtor. And that is one thing that's more prevalent on the commercial side, but I see a lot of realtors let that get in the way, and it's not even like where their clients are coming from.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Right?
I think it's hard. So hold on. What was the question again? Like, how does it
What
work?
makes a realtor a bad realtor?
I would say, oh man, it's hard. I mean, there's people that will look at me, right? And I feel like I've done enough to where someone say, hey, that guy's successful. But there's plenty of realtors that I know that go, he's a bad realtor. And so was I in that transaction a bad realtor? Possibly. But on all these other ones, was I a great realtor? And it really comes down to like what Devante said. This transaction, I'm trying to make sure everyone's doing what they need to do. I'm being honest with what the facts are, what the transaction is. And I even asked one of my assistants the other day, I was like, hey, do people not like us? And she goes, no, I think we wake up generally every day and we're not trying to screw anybody. But like Matt said, there's personalities involved, there's emotions involved in every single transaction that are coming from all these different parties, seller, buyers, and realtors as well. You don't know what those people are going through. And sometimes that kind of mixes into the transaction and creates a bad realtor situation for someone that might not be a bad realtor. There was a couple years back when my dad passed away, and for a month or two, I would say pretty much every realtor I was working with probably hated my guts. And they're like, man, this guy sucks. But they didn't know I was going through a very emotional time. So what makes a bad realtor is, like Devante said, someone's just not honest. That's it.
That's good.
If you're honest, you're a good realtor.
Yeah.
Because even if you don't know what you're doing, like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing, can you help me? I've helped plenty of realtors go, hey, look, I got you. This is what you got to do, da-da-da-da.
Right.
But the ones that aren't honest and try to pretend like they know what they're doing, those are the ones that are like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Why don't you just ask me? And maybe they just don't have a good brokerage or someone overseeing them, helping them out.
And this, I think this too, man, just being a very contentious, hard to work with person. Like no real estate agent wants to be on the other side of a deal with somebody who is just hard to work with. Like I've learned that you just get more with honey versus being bitter. It's
just be cool.
Yeah.
Very true.
Don't freak out over the seller's disclosure. I'm going to get to you.
Right.
It's not the end of the world if you don't have third-party financing before closing. You're going to get it.
I love it. I love how you totally blows it.
That's what it is, bro. It's the honest truth.
Yeah.
I would say, how on Twitter, there's like the fact checkers where it's like, hey, this statement is not true. I think if we had that'd probably make things a lot better.
Yeah. Think so too. Yeah.
So that when people post stuff, it's like, that's not true. Those numbers aren't real. This is not right.
Yeah.
Or just false information. I think sometimes people are so, realtors in this sense, are so, especially in the beginning, are hungry to get deals just to get something to where down the line when it comes back to like a professional, it's like, no, where did you learn that from? Where did you hear that? That's not the way it works at all. And so I know there's laws and there's rules against like social media, but I think for me, the last couple of years, that's the biggest one. The information that's put out by agents and professionals on social media needs to represent exactly the way it is and not a false world they live in where they're just trying to get whatever they can.
That's good. Yeah.
What do y'all think? This is just thinking out loud. I mean, I was doing a deal this morning, and the broker said the owner would owner finance, and I said, well, can we talk to him? And so we all jumped on the phone and we talked. And so I just feel like if people could just communicate more directly, get the agent still on the phone, but a lot of agents will never do that. Never, they'll always relay it. And so I think that can be good and bad, but I just feel like if people were able to talk more directly,
I agree.
That would work better.
I think some people are scared for others to talk to their clients because they're going to look dumb. And maybe they're going to look in the light of, I don't know what I'm doing. And this other person maybe is smarter than me or knows more than me. But in certain situations, like what you just said, like I wouldn't mind. I've even asked agents, can I talk to your seller? Because this is, I don't think this is being presented the way it actually is. And I don't think you have the capability to do it. And I've had offended some realtors who were like, no, you can't talk to them, or no, you can't talk to my buyer.
Right.
And I'm like, I know if I talk to your person, this can all just go away.
Right.
And there's been times to where we've actually have talked to the clients that were represented by somebody else after the fact, and they didn't know what their realtor was doing. They didn't know why their realtor was doing like that. And I think a lot of it's because it's just a pride thing. This is my client and you're never going to talk to them and da-da-da-da. It's like, well, we'd all be a whole lot happier if we could. So yeah, exactly what Matt said.
That's just, I took that from commercial, was like, commercial guys and girls are like, let's get a deal done.
Yeah.
I'd really never had anybody on the other side just being extremely difficult. I'm sure it happens, but it's a lot less of that in residential. And I feel like it should be more like, let's work together. There's no issue with, I guess to your point, right? It's, you might be scared of looking bad, but there is no issue of just, let's all just get on and talk real quick and hear each other out.
And if you're working with a true professional, like I'm not going to try to make a realtor look bad because then I'm going to kill the deal.
Right.
And then if
they're not going to do any more deals with you.
Yeah.
Right. Have you ever been at a closing table with both buyer and seller? Were you ever in that season? I remember that used to be like that, right?
At the closing table?
Right, yeah. I think when buyer and seller, they would all come to the
Same
closing
time.
table.
I've had them like kind of like pass in the hallway.
Gotcha.
And hopefully it was a good transaction where they like staring each other down. But I've also had transactions where the buyer and seller hate each other and like we have to split it apart in times just to make sure they didn't even accidentally bump into each other.
Don't get them on the same call. Yeah, that's the time.
Yeah, you can also, like you said, you can also know like, hey, this is not going to go well. You don't want to talk to my seller.
That's what I was thinking too. It's like, you got to, because it's hard to know, like if you're the buyer, it's hard to know the character of the seller, the buyer, or how the seller is good. Because you may know your client is good. Oh yeah, this person can get along with anybody, and of course I'd let them on the phone with you. But if the other people are just like,
I had a deal recently where, Shannon Bumstead. She's a realtor here in town, and she was selling her house. And my clients, a few times, she's like, "Hey, they want to pass by his house line, and they can pass by." She ended up becoming like really good friends with him, and I was like totally cool with it because I made the deal happen, and everybody was happy. She was happy as a seller and the realtor. My buyers are happy because I made the deal happen. But you just have to kind of just trust the process.
Yeah,
I had an off-market deal where I was writing the contract, but like the guy had, and I brought the deal to the buyer, right? But the buyer was communicating directly with the seller, and so to make the deal happen, because he actually paid for the guy's Uber to the closing table, and so because he couldn't, the guy just didn't have a car, so my buyer just made the deal happen, and it worked. So
the seller didn't have
creative.
Yeah, the seller didn't have a car.
So
the lights were turning out. Yeah, he really needed that house to sell. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Pay you to go get your check.
Yeah.
Right. Pay you to go.
It was the best text I ever got. It was
Uber black too.
Yeah.
It looks looking nice when you roll up. Realtors, like we answered this a while ago, realtors are worth what they're worth.
Right.
And when you go and you represent yourself to a seller, you decide what that seller is going to pay you. And that's it. It's not decided by anybody else. It's not decided by my brokerage, or at least in my world. It's decided by me. And so if I'm worth a certain amount, then that's what I'm going to get. If I'm not going to get that from that person, then I'm going to get it from somebody else. As far as people freaking out about it, I think it's more people that maybe aren't as seasoned or don't realize how this world works. And they're just worried like, oh, this seller is going to not want to pay me because they feel like, I guess I can't answer the question without getting too much into what the lawsuit is actually about. Do you want me to actually talk about it? Or do you want to talk about it?
Sure. I mean, the way I put it is, the question I would ask to, let's say you're the consumer, is, one, did you know what you were paying? Right. Two, were you forced to pay that to me? And three, did I get you what you wanted? And that's the reason why it's, in my opinion, not right. And simply put, I believe that it was an opportunity for attorneys to make a lot of money. So
which is way more than percentage.
They're making way more money than anybody else.
That's true.
And attorneys operate the same way. in a lot of sense, right? We're going to go sue the attorney industry. So it's just not right. And honestly, nothing really, for the most part, as far as I'm aware, has even changed. Like, they paid all this money. Keller Williams settled. I think they paid $80 million, and nothing's changed. So to me, that's that first point of those 3 points, and then the fact that attorneys made all this money and nothing changed. That it was just a money grab.
I would recommend somebody getting into the industry if you're wanting to from like a genuine place. Like, just don't look at somebody who, you know, they're doing really well. You see them killing in real estate.
Run half
and you're
marathon.
Full marathon.
Full marathon.
Yeah, you see Gino run a full marathon. I was like, maybe I can do it now. No, I just think you got to come from a place of you really sat down, thought about it for yourself, for your own life, instead of just envying something that somebody else has going on. Because if you go through the envy route, you're going to get into it. You're going to see it's a lot harder than it looks, and then you'll fall out, right? But I would say I love it because, you know, going from the military to real estate, you can work really hard in the military, and if you're at a certain pay grade, you're only going to make that pay grade.
Yeah.
So if somebody's not working really hard and they're at your pay grade too, y'all making the same check every 1st and 15th. In real estate, you will get what you put in. You know, every seed may not grow, but if you plant seeds, you will get a harvest eventually.
Amen.
Like that.
I think I would recommend it, but I think at the same point, I think I would be like, even though I think you should have boundaries in real estate, but I do think if you're not prepared to hustle, like you guys have been saying, if you're not prepared to put the work in, like I remember my first couple years, like the first 2 years, like if I'd bring my computer with me every single place I'd go. So I'd be like, if I had someone like say, like you said, like, oh, I want to write an offer, I would pull over in the parking lot and pull out my computer, hotspot, and like write the offer. And if you're not prepared to do that, then you should not get into real estate at all.
The biggest answer, the clearest answer that I would have is if you are looking at a clock and you're waiting for the clock to hit a certain number for you to be free.
Clock out.
Right? You're writing a clock and you're waiting on it. I mean, you can work a 9 to 5 and not be waiting on the clock. But if you're looking at it and you're waiting on it, then essentially you're like wishing that time just flies by. And like, that's really the only thing we have. So kind of a wasted life, right? So if you're looking at a clock and waiting to clock out, then yeah, you should do this. And that was me. And I was real young, but I remember I was mopping the floor at Wingstop, and all my friends were hanging out, and I think they closed at 12. You love Wingstop? That's why I worked there. But I couldn't wait for the time to go by, and that I was like, this is horrible. It was like a nightmare for me. So if that's you and you want the freedom, like we have to look at the clock because we got things to go do,
deadlines,
not because we're trying to clock out, right?
That's good.
And so that's a wasted life. And so if that's you, yes, do it. And then the biggest advice I'd say is to be a student of the game. Like really focus on being a student of the game and not just getting in to make money to make money. Like care about it, speak the language, know what's going on, try to be great, and focus on bringing value. And you got to own real estate as well. Like don't just be an agent because we work in the probably best industry in the world to create wealth. Yeah. And if you're not owning it, then you're missing out on like 90% of the value.
Yeah, isn't it 90% of millionaires own real estate?
Yeah. And realtors don't have a retirement plan, right? Like, but it's sitting right in front of them. They walk through it every single day.
Yeah.
So.
I heard Bitcoin went crazy too. No, I'm kidding.
All-time high.
Well, that's the other thing, right? Because like Bitcoin, I'm a believer. But if you own assets, then people will just pay you in Bitcoin one day.
Good. So the answer to the question is, sorry, what's the question?
How do you know that, like, would you advise someone to get into real estate and then what's your advice?
I advise everybody and I tell them, get your license. And then once you get your license, you can do the real work, which is becoming a realtor, which is nothing like getting your license. And then once you get into this world, you might find that you have a bigger niche when it comes to new construction, or it comes to wholesaling, or it comes to flips or investments or appraisals. My wife got her license 11 years ago and was like, not for me, but she found another part of this world that would never want to do. And so it's definitely, there's opportunities available for those that want to take them, but it is not an easy money job. It is not one of those things you just get into and wake up and go, I'm going to be a realtor today. For anybody you know that's successful, they put a lot of work into their business for years and years and years. And if you're not prepared for that and you just want a quick little paycheck, you might get it. You might get a couple of sales, but it's not going to be ultimately what you end up wanting to do.
Yeah.
Like, you have to live real estate.
The last thing that I'll say on advice, I heard this recently, and it's like, if you want to make money, find somebody who's making it and help them make more of it. And like, just do that within real estate and you'll be good. The right person, right? Someone that you respect and look up to.
I agree. That's what I did when I first started. I just jumped in Chris's car. Chris is my cousin and our broker. Like, I would get off the radio. That's because I had a fun job. Like, I figured I had a fun job and I still wanted to do something different. I would get off the air, get to his office and jump in his car and literally just listen and just hear him talk, hear him on the phone, hear him make deals, not understand. It was like he was speaking a different language. I'm like, I don't know what the hell you're saying. And when he would tell me certain things about the world, I remember telling him, that's not the way it works. And he's like, yeah, it is. This is the way things work. You just don't see it because you're not in this world. And then when you do see it, you're like, oh my God, I didn't know checks could have a comma in it. That's pretty cool.
Subscribe to Kingdom Heirs.
Ring the bell. Let me say it.